Welcome to Bryer CD Showcase. I am Bryer Cisneros, and I have a fun little topic for you. So I want you to go ahead and think about 5 albums that on first listen, either you didn't care for it or you just outright hated it. So I'm going to be talking about 5 albums that fit in this criteria for me. And while I'm doing that, go ahead, again, just think about 5 albums that you didn't care or like. And when you have it, go ahead and comment below. And while you're doing that, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And also don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss any uploads. So I'm going to go ahead and get started now. So I'm going to get this one out of the way because you already saw the thumbnail. So the first up is Fragile by Yes. Yes, I said Fragile by Yes. So a little story behind this one. So again, this was during a time when I couldn't really afford CDs, so I had to get my mom to buy them for me. And I can't remember how, but again, I'm gonna be showing my age a little bit, but there was this meme that was very popular for a time. You might have seen it. It goes something like this. That's pretty much how it went. So I didn't know it at the time, but I would later learn that that meme was actually a reference to an anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, where the song Roundabout actually was used in the end credits. とうとう掴んだぞってよ。君の悪魔のような陰謀の証拠を。So when I first saw the meme, I heard the song and I heard the acoustic beginning, but then when the bass came in, like, I was hooked because I really liked how that sounded. And of course, I would later find out the name of the song and the band. And I really liked the whole song, and I wanted to get the album it was on, which of course is Fragile. So I had my mom buy it for me, and I got it, and I loved Roundabout. Didn't care for anything else. This was kind of during a time, it was during that time where I was still somewhat new to progressive rock, so I didn't really develop a good ear for it. So I liked Roundabout, but when we got to the other stuff on the album, I just didn't really care for. I mainly cared about the hits. That's kind of a factor that will come across again in the other albums I'm going to talk about. But yeah, so for a while I kind of just shelved this album to the side for a while. But it wasn't until, I sort of got more familiar with progressive rock, and my mom bought Relayer by Yes. And when I heard that one clicked immediately. Like, that was the first Yes album where I loved everything on the disc, and that made me want to check out more of Yes. And of course that led to Close to the Edge, the Yes album, and eventually I came back to this, and now I love the whole thing now. So yep, that's Fragile by Yes. Good example of what I'm talking about today. As with this one, again, this is one of his, some people say is actually one of his best albums, and that's Heroes by David Bowie. Sorry for the glare, you saw the reflection there. Yes. Again, another example where the hits kind of was my only driving force of why I got this. That being the title track, of course, which is amazing. But yeah, I liked all the other songs. Like side 1, I liked. But then we got to side 2, and I didn't really care for much for the instrumental / ambient music on the second side. I didn't really get it at the time. But it was actually very recently, actually. It was when I actually bought Low, which I might as well just show it. I already showed it in my last CD haul, but it's this one right here. And after I listened to Low, I loved it right away. And since this is the follow-up album, naturally I decided, maybe I should just listen to the whole album in full, and maybe I'll have a better appreciation for the whole album. And I did, and that's exactly what happened. So now I can appreciate this whole album now. I think it's definitely an album that I think it's best if you just listen from the beginning to the end. It's because everything just makes more sense that way. And that's really how some albums are kind of meant to. You're not supposed to take songs out and just, put on a playlist. I still do that sometimes, but I think definitely in recent years I've become more of an albums person, and I am kind of happy about that. So yeah, that's Heroes by David Bowie. Again, really good one. Now I totally get why it's one of his all-time greatest ones. Next up, Pink Floyd, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Again, I talked about this in my ultimate debut albums video where I went through all my debut albums that I had at the time, and I talked about this, and I did talk about my feelings about it. So I'll kind of do like a recap of it. So I'll admit I'm not the hugest not progressive, psychedelic rock fan. I do like it, but I kind of have to be in the right mood for it. So I was already a fan of Pink Floyd. Like, I knew the Dark Side of the Moon, I knew The Wall, I pretty much knew the whole classic period. But when it came to their early stuff, I kind of ignored it for a bit. I did like the first two songs on here, like Astronomy Don't Mind and Lucifer Sam. Like, those two songs I liked, but then everything else I kind of forgot about. And so this was kind of in my collection for a little bit. I don't know if I talked about this, but all the albums come in this Discovery box set, which I have here. And I never really had the urge to go and listen to this. But again, this actually was recent. I decided, I'm just going to sit down and actually listen to the whole album in full, and let's see what happens. And I did, and I definitely have a much better appreciation for it now. Again, I need to be in the right mood if I want to listen to this album, because it's very, very out there, very trippy. But yeah, but it's a fun album, and a shame that this is like really the only real album where Syd Barrett was fully in charge, right before he lost his mind. But yeah, great album. It's pretty much hailed as one of the greatest psychedelic albums of all time, and I'm not going to deny that. Okay, just two more. So up next, I talked about this in a previous video, but I'm going to go to Genesis with the Lamb Light Down on Broadway. It's not so much for disc 1. I actually really loved disc 1 when I first heard it. It was just disc 2 that was kind of, I don't know, like, didn't really click for me at first. So, I don't know, I opened this, but if you're curious, disc looks like this, really cool. So yeah, disc 1 I absolutely loved, but then disc 2 was one I would not really listen to very much, if at all. But the story of how I grew to appreciate the album as a whole, and I think I talked about this in my Genesis ranking video, so go check that out for the full story, but I'll try to make this brief. So this was pre-COVID. I'm still in college, but before, I had to take a bus to the school I attended, and that was like an hour long bus ride. So one day I decided, I'm gonna listen to the whole thing, and by the time I get to my first class, the album's gonna be over. And I did, and I sat through the whole album, every single song, and that's when it finally clicked. So yeah, so disc 2, Lily White Lilith is a great one. Anyway, it's pretty good. The Lamia, I think that's how you say it. That's probably my favorite song on disc 2, honestly. And then you have The Light Dies Down on Broadway, and then the closing song is It, which is a great closer. I think it's a perfect way to close the album. Yeah, if you've seen my ranking video, then you kind of know where this album lies. If you want to know where it lies in my ranking of every Genesis album, I'll leave a link in the description for you to check out my ranking of every Genesis album. So again, love it now. And then finally, this is probably like the poster child of this topic, at least for me. Is this one, Master of Puppets by Metallica. And little interesting fact, this is actually one of the very first CDs I ever received from my collection. Again, my mom bought it for me, and it was actually I think I got this out. We actually got this at Walmart. So the story behind this one is, I was kind of still early on in my journey listening to music, and I wanted to get into more metal. And I already knew Metallica. I knew they were one of the biggest metal bands out there, but I didn't know a whole lot. I knew Enter Sandman, and that was like the only real song I knew of. And so one day I told my coworker at the job I'm working at, and I told him about me getting to Metallica, and he suggested you gotta check out early Metallica. And of course he brought up Master of Puppets. And so me and my mom went to Walmart. We found it, we bought it, and I put it on, and I didn't like it at all at first. It was just too heavy for me. It was just too much. It started off okay with Battery, which starts off with that little acoustic piece, but then it quickly built it, and then it went straight into whole hardcore thrash. And at that time, my ears were not accustomed to it, so I was like, this is too much. But yeah, I didn't like it in the beginning. So I kind of I tried to, like, a few times to get into it, but it was just like, I don't think I'm gonna be much of a Metallica fan. So that was kind of, at that point, I was just ready to just kind of have it to the side, just to have, but eventually time went on, and eventually I had to develop like an ear for metal. So I started off with Black Sabbath, then I went to Iron Maiden, and then Judas Priest, and then finally the day came where I decided to give this another chance. And then after quite a while of just trying to get into it, finally I grew to really love this album. I mean, Battery is a great opener. Master of Puppets is one of their classics for a reason. The Things That Should Not Be, Welcome Home, Disposable Heroes is a great song. And of course, Orion, which is instrumental, is absolutely, like, it's one of the great metal instrumentals ever. I mean, Cliff Burton, what a great bass player he was. But yeah, I still prefer Ride the Lightning. That's still my favorite Metallica album, but this now has become my second favorite. So yes, that's really the moral of the story here, is that sometimes when there's albums that we either didn't like or care for at first, sometimes we either need to give it some more listens, or we gotta kind of develop an ear for the type of music we want to try and get into. So that is it. That is 5 of the albums that took me a while to get into, so I'll give a recap. So again, Master of Puppets by Metallica, Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Pink Floyd, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, David Bowie, Heroes, and then finally Fragile by Yes. So that is it. So again, in the comments below, please leave down the albums that took you a while to either like or appreciate. And then don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell, of course, so you don't miss any uploads. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Goodbye for now.